Yo and hello, welcome to the League of Fantasy Legends podcast once again. I think my audio is way too loud. Let me turn this down real quick. Let's see, is that any better? That is a little better there. We are here to do picks and bans today for your sleeper leagues. We're going to start out, we're going to go through what we did good, what we did bad last week. I've got the results here. You can see a lot more red than there is green, although that is usually about how it works. These picks and bans are tough to get. They're tough to nail. We do our best, but we will keep trying. We'll go through, I've got all the drafts lifted out here. You can see these are the drafts by game, so you can kind of see what teams are prioritizing in general. These are the drafts by team, so you can see these are the two C9 games. We'll go through what each team seems to be prioritizing, and then use all that to come here to our master sheet and make our picks and bans for each player. Excited to do it. We'll get right into looking at last week. I want to start with, let me pull this up here. I want to start with what we saw overall. So this is Oracle's Elixir, if you guys can see it well. Essentially, let me get this full screen, if I remember how. That's certainly not it. Well, what you can see here is basically I've got this ordered first by number of picks. I had it right, then I messed it up. First by number of picks and then by position. So we can see by position what was played the most and kind of compare it to what we had projected here. So I'm going to go ahead and split my screen here into my picks from last week along with the picks in general. And so what we did last week, we went through all the choices here. And basically, like, these are what are getting played internationally, and then what are we expecting, each team to play. And so I really only picked from these, except for very specific circumstances, right? Like we chose Kindred for Piosik. There's a very specific circumstance. So what choices were good last week? Cassante was obviously everywhere. Jax as well. As we look at it, I mean, those are the only two that were played more than twice. It was Jax and Cassante. I really thought we'd see more Gnar, and we really didn't too much Gnar. Going to turn that one red. Renekton, same way, right? Only one Renekton. Fiora, I think only one. Yeah, so we didn't see a lot. It was really just Cassante and Jax. And so, yeah, not great. As we look at next week, like what champions can be played. I've kind of copied this over. I think Fiora's out. I think Renekton's out. We'll move Jax up. Those are the main two, right? And then always we'll have the meta's going to adjust as we go. It always does. And so it's going to be a matter of, can we stay on top of it, right? I think Gnar will be here and there. So I'm going to put Gnar with a question mark. And I think you can put Ornn here and there. But realistically, it's been Cassante and Jax, just kind of over and over on repeat. Gnar and Ornn, I think you can find a spot for them. What about the jungle? Jungle, we said Vi, Wukong, Sejuani, Maokai. If we look at it, lots of Sejuani, a good bit of Wukong, and then not so much for the others. We picked Maokai for a couple. We nailed Spica. Spica was actually the only one to play Maokai. And then as we look at it, 50% ban. And so as we look picks by team, I'm going to have to make this a little smaller so we can see everything at once. But as we get into FlyQuest here, all right, you can see they had an early priority on Maokai. They first picked Maokai both games. Obviously, red side, it was, second. Blue side, first pick. So heavy priority on Maokai for FlyQuest. They seem to want that control from the jungle for Spica. That's always kind of been what Spica's good at, right? It's just like controlling and giving his team the chance. And that team's going to play around Prince so much. So, we'll keep that in mind as we go. Maokai only played by Spica. I saw he was, banned a couple times early. We'll go ahead and move on. So Maokai gets a question mark. Vi as well. It seems like Vi right now is just a counter pick to Zeri, which, it has its purpose, but I don't think it's one that you can really pick that much. So Sejuani, Wukong, and then maybe Vi ? Maokai ? What else do we see? We saw some Elise priority. So Elise was only played twice, but it was banned a good bit. And so, especially these teams that want to play so heavily around bot lane, Elise can just be there over and over and over. And so, question mark on Vi, Maokai, Elise. And then we saw Graves, we saw Viego. There's always going to be those one-offs. And so we'll see. It just seems like, oh gosh, I did this all wrong. This is all supposed to be on the other page. So let's go ahead and copy paste that over. And then can we undo our way back to where we started? No, we cannot. Oh boy, we are all over the place. Okay. This was Elise ? We take this, we'll copy it over. Alright, mid lane. The big miss in the mid lane was... Oh gosh, I did it again. The big miss in the mid lane was Syndra. I thought we'd see a lot of Syndra. We didn't at all. If we pull it up here, Syndra was only played once. It was banned 0 times. So I was expecting some Syndra presence. We had Syndra presence internationally. Bjergsen hovered it just to piss me off. Was no good. Syndra, terrible. Ryze was banned too much. And it's North America. I should have known, right? We're going to go to the Azir. We're going to play the Azir. We're going to play the Sylas badly. We're going to go to Akali. All right, the Kassadin, weirdly 100% banned, but almost never banned in the first rotation. And that kind of makes sense when you think about Kassadin as a champion, right? Heavy counter pick, great against AP champions, gets wrecked by AD champions. I think an early Kassadin just finds itself into a Lucian mid or an Aurelia, maybe an Akshan, and just gets stopped. So I don't think we're going to see Kassadin just because it's going to be never early picked and always late banned. As we look at what else came through, Sylas, Azir, Akali, and then Victor for the ones that want to, play the control mage. And so as we look at it, Azir is going to be, whoops, that's not what we want. Azir is going to be the main priority, followed by Sylas, Akali, Victor ? And that is it. We're not going to see any Syndra. We're not going to see any. We're not going to see any Ryze just because of the bans. And so really Azir, Sylas, Akali, which is the exact same as Worlds. And so that's kind of lame. Don't love that, but that's where we're at. AD carry spot. Zeri, Lucian, Varus was what I was expecting. I expected Lucian to get through more, but they were not willing to give the Lucian, as we pulled up here. Lucian, 100% pick and ban, but only 30% pick. And so Lucian, to me, gets a question mark because, and we'll try to evaluate team by team, but it just seems like it's just not going to get through enough. Maybe some teams are prioritizing banning it, other teams are prioritizing picking it. Not really sure. Varus is a weird one because Varus was the highest presence. 5 games out of 10 it was played, so literally half the games, and yet it was a 0% win rate. Like, it's literally 0% win rate. And so what do you make of that, right? We try to get ahead of the meta shifts. The meta's going to shift within the LCS. It always does. And so what do you do with a champion that was the highest presence but a 0% win rate? Are teams going to move off of it? Or are they going to lean harder into it? What we see internationally, it really seems like Varus is the champ that it's the champ that gets pushed, right? You get Varus, you pair it with a Karma, Heimerdinger, and you just push. But that just doesn't seem to be working in North America. In LPL, great, you get that priority, and then you move. It just doesn't seem like that's the play in North America. And so, stop me if you heard this again. It's Zeri and it's Sivir and it's Lucian Nami. I mean, that's just, the meta changes, but realistically, it just stays the same. So looking at week 2, what are our options? It's Zeri, it's Sivir. We'll go Varus, which gets, I'm not going to put a question mark on it, and then Lucian if it gets through the bans. So we'll go through and see, can we discern which teams are prioritizing which AD carries, and then as we go through the supports, what supports were picked. It's kind of all over the place. We saw 4 Lulus, 3 Ashe, 3 Heimerdinger, 3 Karma, 3 Nami. Nami, you're only going to see with Lucian, so I'll go ahead and give that one a red, even though it was decent. It goes green because 3 is enough. Heimerdinger we saw 3 times. I just don't love it. I don't know. We'll see what teams are prioritizing it. It gets a green. Lulu definitely a green. Yuumi I was surprised to not see much of, realistically. It was such pick ban during Worlds. 60%, I guess 6 out of 10 games it had presence, but there were plenty of games where the Yuumi was up and, teams were opting for the Lulu. Maybe they're just giving, the fans what they want. No one wants to watch a Yuumi. But we'll see. Again, we said this last week, but your choices here are going to be very specific to the AD carry. Lots of pairings there. So you're going to see... I didn't even talk about Ashe. Yeah, we got Ashe in there too. And Karma. There are so many choices. So Lulu is going to be the top one. And as we go through Heimer, Karma, Ashe, Nami, Yuumi. It's a lot of options to choose from. So that's what makes it tough. As we look through, percentage in the first week, 32%. That's pretty average. It doesn't feel that high, but as you look at 32%, that's about where I've been when doing these predictions. My highest prediction ever was 40%. Right, that's getting, what's the quick math on that? 40 divided by 5 is 8, 16 out of 40. Champions right, that's still less than half, but it's about as good as you can do, I think. My best one ever was heavily propped up by the Jinx and, was it Jinx Zeri or Jinx Sivir? Whatever meta that was, where there were only 2 options. That really propped up my predictions that time. 32% I'm fine with. Really hurt me that I missed the Fudge pick. I had so many Cassantes here. Didn't get Fudge. That pick, if you got that one right, it earned you like 70 points. Just insane amount of points that Fudge was able to put up on Cassante. Also was kind of kicking myself on not putting Zeri for Prince. Prince, in my mind, very similar to Berserker. And the way we've seen that FlyQuest is going to play through Prince, he's going to be on the hyper carries. I don't think we'll see him on the Lucian, even if they had the chance. So let's try to get into specific picks here per player. I think it's harder than it seems to really land on the right spot. As we go through, we'll start with the top lane here. Cassante Jax is really what we're going to see, except for a few specific situations. We know a couple players love playing Gnar. We know a couple players are willing to go on Ornn duty for their team. And so I'll just start out with the Ornn duty. A player that was one of the players of the week last week is Solo. In Solo, he's willing to play Ornn. I'm just going to put Ornn in there for him because I think that TSM is going to kind of lead on this identity that they kind of found. And what that is Solo being solid in the top lane, playing weak side. And then we see Bougie. Sorry, I always said Bougie. How dare I? He's Bug-Eye to us. He is Bug-Eye. Bug-Eye, what is he going to play? We're seeing he's playing aggressive things. And so, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was the only Graves and the only Viego. Let me make sure I get this right. Where is TSM? Got him here. He played Graves and, Elise. That's what it was, not Viego. So Graves Elise. And so he is not playing the Sejuani, the Maokai that other people are playing. TSM's not going to lean into that. And so with that being said, I think he gets Elise. I think he's going to, play that and try to play around the bot lane that played so well last week. As we go through, again, I'm going to kind of go through each player. So we look at Someday. Someday in the first week. You know what I'm going to do? Biscuit, my co-host here, was so nice to put each player's picks So we are going to put these up here with us so we can easily see what each person played last week. So as we look at Someday last week, Jax Cassante. So he played both sides of the common matchup. What do we have here? Let's look at the draft, right? And so did they pick Jax over Cassante? Was it an answer? As we look in the first one, it would appear that, let's see, Cassante was picked as an answer into Jax. So CLG prioritized the Jax, e.g. happy to take the Cassante. As we look back, looks like Someday played Jax into, he would pick Jax blind, right? So he picked Cassante as the answer to the Jax. He picks Jax blind. With that in mind, it looks like Jax is the call. Now, if you're willing to pick Jax blind, I believe with Cassante up, let me check that again. Yeah, Cassante was a second phase ban here. So he likes Jax in that matchup. So who are we to argue? Summit struggled last week. We'll go ahead and look at, let's see, Team Liquid. Where is Summit? There he is, Jax and Gnar. So we did not see him on the Cassante. Looks like they early banned it in the second game. So they didn't want to play the Cassante at all. What do we have as far as this draft? They played against TSM, the Ornn. So we played the Gnar as a counter pick into the Ornn. We're not going to see Summit play against Ornn a lot. So I don't think, even though we picked Gnar from last week, I think that the Gnar is a good pick in general, but no one's picking Gnar into the Jax. No one's picking Gnar into the Cassante. I think that's a bad pick. We're going to go ahead and take Summit. Jax seems to be the answer. They're early banning Cassante. They don't want to play it. Fudge is an interesting one. Again, we missed Fudge last week on the Cassante. It becomes almost like a game of chicken, right? Like, are you willing to not pick Fudge and then have him play Cassante again? I don't know if I am, to be honest. Because of how much he popped off, I truly, honestly believe it's going to get banned against him both games. I really, truly believe that. But will I be able to live with myself if Cassante is picked and I don't have it? And the answer is yes, because it's going to get banned. I'm doing Jax. Tenacity. So 100 Thieves, where are we here? Tenacity played Jax and Renekton. So as we look at it, they banned Jax Fiora and Gnar against Immortals. So they're really trying to have revenge, go way down the champion pool. Jax Fiora and Gnar, and then first pick Zeri. So they were, oh no, because the Cassante was the final pick for Immortals. So many top laners off the board. That's why we saw Renekton versus Ornn. We're not going to see that very often. What happened in the second game? We got a first pick Jax. There it is. Tenacity likes Jax. Jax down the board seems to be the play. We'll see if that continues as we go into FlyQuest. Impact here, Gangplank and Cassante. I know that Gangplank was the last pick. Let's look at it here. FlyQuest. So we saw a Cassante ban in the first game. Where are we here? So we got a blind Jax, which was answered by the GP. So Impact likes the GP into the Jax. Obviously, the Nami, the Syndra playing a huge part into that GP pick. Look at the second game into Sejuani Varus, Gnar banned. We got a Cassante pick, last pick of the first phase, which was answered by an Olaf counter pick. And Jax was unpicked that time. So FlyQuest seems to prioritize the Cassante over the Jax. It was banned against him. So for Impact, I think you can pick Gangplank for him. I mean, he's going to get the opportunity. If so many teams are prioritizing the Jax, and then they ban the Cassante, Gangplank maybe, but then again, you might just ban the GP against Impact. So Cassante is the pick for Impact. Dokla for CLG. Who did Dokla play last week? Gangplank and Jax. That sounds familiar. As we go over here, CLG was blue side both games. We see that he picked a blind Jax with Cassante up. And EG just answered Cassante. So it seems like he prefers the Jax. Looking at the second game, Jax was the blind pick. GP was the answer. So GP seems to be an answer into the Jax. Again, I am not a high elo top laner. Don't really know how the matchups go, but I just trust what I see in the draft. It seems like Jax is the pick for Dokla. He was willing to pick it blind with the Cassante up. Jax seems to be a decent blind pick right now, which we've never really seen. Jax has always been a counter pick, but CLG took it blind. Dig took it blind here. So Jax again, we've got Jax for 5 out of 6. We look at Dignitas, Armut. Armut struggled, as did all of Dignitas. It doesn't get any easier for him. As we look here, we've got the game we just talked about actually. The blind Jax into the GP. Game 2, we see Gnar bans against him both times. No one's going to let Armut play Gnar. It's probably smart. We actually picked, if I remember right, we picked Gnar for Armut last week. No one's going to let him play it. It's going to get banned. So that's too bad. I'd like to see Gnar on the Armut. Whoa, Armut on the Gnar. Whoops, as we look at it. Okay, and then we see he picked Olaf as the counter pick into Cassante. So we actually saw Jax go unpicked this game. Olaf, the preferred counter pick into Cassante for Armut. So, this one's tough. There's no clear answer given to us by the draft. So I'm going to go to the Jax. It just seems like that's what people are preferring. Even though we keep seeing the Jax get solo killed by Cassante kind of over and over. It seems like once a game that's happening. What do we got here for Revenge? Revenge had a Fiora blind. Wow, I do not remember that. I think that's, we had the Jax ban, Fiora, and he's just betting that they'll take the Cassante into it, which of course DSM did and crushed him with it. Looking at game 2, we had him on the Ornn against the blind Renekton. Ornn's not going to be able to be played a whole lot, because if you end up against a Fiora or a Jax, you just have no chance. So I'm not picking Ornn for Revenge. They're not going to want to do that. If you look at the bans for 100 Thieves against Immortals, Jax, Fiora, Gnar, I'm not sure other teams are going to be doing that. Maybe, right? Maybe, the meta right now is kind of strange in that you can get away with target banning one player 3 times. There's no real, true must bans. Except for maybe Rise. All right, Rise is the one we see here the most often. So for Revenge, what do we do? We've got a blind Fiora. We've got an Ornn counterpick into a Renekton. Immortals themselves, they banned the Cassante against 100 Thieves. They wanted to avoid that first pick, I suppose. I'm going to go Cassante. Well, no, I'm not. No, not if they are willing to ban it. So they banned the Renekton in the first game. Jax banned against him both games. Will Jax be banned? We haven't seen Jax be banned much. I'm not going to allow it. I think Cassante gets banned against Fudge. There have been games where it just looks so strong. I don't know. And then Licorice for Golden Guardians. They've got another tough schedule, another tough week. What did we see last week? We saw an Olaf counter pick into the Jax. Usually we've been seeing that into the Cassante, and then we saw the Jax blind matched by Cassante. So, yeah, it's Jax again. Sometimes you analyze these drafts and you realize that, the priority on some of these are higher than what you thought originally. I would have thought that this was going to be pretty even between Cassante and Jax. Seems like most people prefer the Jax in this matchup, except for maybe Fudge, right? But it's going to get banned against Fudge. No one's going to let him play that champion again. So there it is. Lots of Jax. Now, will all these people play Jax? Not unless it's never banned. It's going to be banned sometimes. So, of course, we're kind of shooting for that 40%. That's our goal. I've only hit it once, but we'll see. Move into the jungle. So as we look through the jungle, we'll start with Inspired. Inspired had a nice week last week. Sejuani Elise is what we saw. Sejuani was kind of everywhere, and we'll see as we go through the drafts. Like, was it early picked? Let's see what EG first picked it. CLG first picked it against them. I mean, that's pretty clear, right? It seems EG is valuing the Sejuani. The Sejuani's not getting banned. I'm going to pull up that chart again. He has banned 2 games, played the other 8, 100% presence. People love the Sejuani. It's so strong with the duelers in the top lane, the Jax and the Cassante, that I don't know, it almost feels like you have to, especially you get a Sylas in the mid lane or the Akali. The Sejuani just so strong with melee champions. So we're going to see a lot of Sejuani. We're starting it with Inspired. And I don't really want to see him in the Sejuani. It's kind of boring. But it is what it is. Closer, 100 Thieves. Played Viego, and would you look at it, Sejuani. It was the only Viego of the week, and it was terrible. I mean, obviously they played C9. The Wukong going crazy. Excuse me. Against that last pick, Viego. What happened in this first game with Sejuani towards the end? They certainly valued it over any other jungler, right? It was the first jungler picked or banned. Wukong was the answer. Closer wants Sejuani too. I think that's going to be a trend here. Blabber played Wukong both games, if I remember right. We had the Wukong and the Wukong. It's just a Blabber champ. Did we pick that for him? We didn't. Vi, that also feels like a Blabber champ. But Wukong, such a good engaged champion, but you can also get out, whereas Vi, you kind of go in and die. So for Blabber, you can't mess it up, right? He plays Wukong both games. Why change it up? No one's going to ban Wukong, I don't think. Did Wukong even get a single ban last week? Yeah, 1 ban. We're not going to see many Wukong bans. Where was that Wukong ban? Can we find it? Here it is. So I was against Inspired, but let's see. Where were we? Lost my train of thought. Piosik struggled for TL, but if you listen to the pod that we recorded on Sunday, you can find that on Spotify. Links are on the stream here. We see good things for Team Liquid despite a terrible first week. And so what happened last week? They were blue side both times. They had a second rotation Sejuani as the Ashe Callisto was prioritized by TSM. And then this one they got a Vi here as FlyQuest. Of course, had the priority on Maokai. Took the Maokai, banned the Sejuani in the second ban phase. Kind of left with the Vi. Wukong was up. They prefer the Vi over the Wukong, so I don't think you'll see Piosik on Wukong. You can see Kindred banned against him both times. I sure want him to play Kindred. We're not going to see it. And let's look at it again with Sejuani. Yeah, it's the Sejuani pick again. Just seems like it's the strongest right now. Spica, we already talked about. Spica, and I'll pull up the drafts here again. But first pick Maokai. Right, and that's with a Sejuani available on both sides. They banned it the second game against Team Liquid, which obviously pushed Piosik to the Vi. We just said that. Maokai for Spica. The only... that's a stupid pronunciation. Or capitalization, rather. And I said Maokai. No, not the skin. Maokai. Right, he picked it both times. So FlyQuest obviously seemed to prioritize it. And, shoot. Why would they change up after how awesome they looked last week? We'll see what they can do against C9. That's going to be an awesome game on Sunday. Santorin for Dignitas. Vi Sejuani. We'll see what pushed him down to the Vi. Let's see, Dignitas. So they got the early Sejuani because of the FlyQuest Maokai priority. We look at the CLG game. They took the early Heimer Varus to get the push here. It was answered by the Sejuani. So the Sejuani, well, they seem to prioritize it, right? They took it first rotation in the second game. You know what? That looks to me like an adaptation where they took the Varus. They don't think the Heimer is that important. Yeah, it's Sejuani for Santorin. Lame. You type Sejuani so many times, it starts to look funky. You know how that happens. You just say the same thing over and over, and it just starts looking stupid. Contract CLG. Played Sejuani twice, got 2 wins. Probably not going to change, are they? Got our first pick, Sejuani here. Answered by Vars Elise. EG playing the Elise into the Sejuani. Getting outscaled to all oblivion. That's why they lost that game. And then Sejuani here in this game we just talked about against Dig. But yeah, it's an obvious Sejuani pick again. CLG, the only team to ban Wukong. It's a weird ban. They must not want to see it. Look at Kenvi for Immortals. Again, sometimes we talk about Immortals. I wonder why I even bother doing it. Sejuani Wukong. So what do we have here by team as we look at Immortals? Let's see it. Here we go. Sejuani, first pick for Immortals in the first matchup against TSM. Then against 100 Thieves, they really didn't prioritize it at all. They went Sivralulu instead. Surprised they wouldn't save and take the Sejuani there. So they don't have crazy high priority against or on it. Interesting. I mean, they first picked Sejuani when they had the chance on blue side. I wonder if there's a spot I can find which team will be on blue side versus red side. I'm sure that will be at some point helpful to know. It's Sejuani again. So boring. River. Will River give us something? Wukong and Sejuani. Wukong kind of feels like a River champion. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to lean that way, but as we look at Golden Guardians here, they early picked the Sejuani, allowed Wukong to be picked, and then EG picked the Sejuani early, and the Golden Guardians answered with the Wukong. And so what's going to happen here? What is Golden Guardians going to prioritize? I don't know. We'll go ahead and see what was banned against them here. We saw a Jarvan ban. I thought so. It's just hilarious, honestly. Like Jarvan not being played at all. Nobody's even thinking about Jarvan, and yet here we are. Let's go Wukong here. I think that they don't have the highest priority on Sejuani. Wukong, they seem to be happy to pick that as an answer. That's where I'm going here. Once again, we end up going pretty heavily into the early, or the most prioritized champion, which for the top lane is Jax. For the jungle is Sejuani. This is where I think things might get interesting because these top 3 picks are all so prevalent. And it's going to be different types of players realistically playing them. And I think there's more ability for pocket picks in the mid lane. So we'll see. Oh, excuse me. How this goes. Starting with Bjergsen. Bjerg played the Sylas, then the Victor. Bjerg's always been a better control mage player than an assassin. The Sylas has never really been it, in my opinion. Especially with the Akali. You know, I'm just thinking of as the Akali performance in the playoffs. The same idea, right? It just wasn't it really seemed like. And so, what did 100 Thieves do in their draft? Nobody's picking early mid laners, like at all. In fact, did we see even one? I'm going to go through this here. Okay. No mid laners. No mid laners. Okay, so we saw some late mid laners. Blue side. You're able to get your pick, and then ban out some of the counters. You can pick Sylas if the Kassadin is already off the table. If you pick Sylas, you cannot allow Kassadin through. It's just such a hard counter. What do we see on this side? Any mid laners? Any mid laners? You know, it almost seems like we saw some. Here you go. FlyQuest took an early Sylas because they had the early Kassadin ban. So yeah, it's interesting. We're just not seeing hardly any mid laners, especially, you know, I've got week 2 on the second line. I guess FlyQuest picked the Sylas because they early banned the Kassadin. They were able to knock out some of the counters. You just get the Akali matchup. Other than that, in the second week, just making sure I have this right before I say it. Yeah, that was the only one. So in the second week, 5 games, the only early rotation mid laner was Sylas on for Dignitas. And so, or sorry, for FlyQuest. So I'm going to go ahead and use that information before. Let me check it here. Silas, what did he play in the other game? He played Azir with a Silas ban. So, Vikla seems to prioritize the Silas. And I don't think, some other players will pick it, but that was the only early rotation mid laner we saw in game 2 of the first week. It's just an interesting thing to see. We saw some as we look at it in the first week, right? So we saw an R3 Silas, we saw an R3 Azir, and then you can just ban out some of the counters. Oh, that's the Azir support. Oh, they got me with this Silas here. Yeah, the Azir, right? So, but here's the Silas. That's the same one. So yeah, really not a lot of mid laners being picked early rotation. And so when you get late rotation, we're gonna get blind picks. Silas is a fine blind pick as long as the Kassadin is banned. Rise only getting through the one time. Every other game it was a red side ban. So we're not going to see any Rise almost whatsoever. So this one's going to be a little bit more random because we just really don't know what teams are going to prioritize. So as we look at it, Bjergsen, he played Silas and Victor last week. His Silas just isn't it, and it always comes down to the thought of if you're best at control mages, but you need to get better at assassins, isn't early season in the spring the best time to play the assassins, get used to playing it? Or are you just trying to win right now? I think it's a really interesting philosophy, really interesting question. I don't think we'll see him on the Silas or the Akali. Not really his champs. The Victor, we could definitely see. Obviously, he picked it. They won with it. But I'm expecting an Azir. Oh, do not mess it with my whole spreadsheet. I'm expecting an Azir from Bjergsen. Kind of boring. Jojo is a different monster entirely. We saw him on the Azir and the Rise. His Azir game was terrible. If you guys saw it, he was 1-6 and then suicides into the fountain after single-handedly making that game difficult for them. And then it was the only time Rise got through. Let's take a peek at the draft here for EG. How does Rise get through to the blue side? So they don't ban it on red side. And I'm surprised it got through, right? We got the first pick, Sejuani. I'm surprised they don't take a Rise here. The 0% win rate Varus coming in as the first pick instead. We'll get to the 80 carries again. Varus is such an interesting one because 5 picks out of 10 games, 0% win rate. How is the meta going to change around that? I just don't think we'll see a lot of the Varus moving forward. That being said, Jojo Pion. We could see him on the Silas. We could see him on the Akali. Were they banned against him here? Looks like we had... No. Nope, no bans either time. So looks like the Rise was his choice if it was up. If not, it's Azir. Yeah, we're going to pick Azir for Jojo Pion. Welcome to NA. Azir every match. Thank goodness Corki is not meta. Diplex was incredible. The Akali, the Silas. He was one of my biggest surprises of the week. He was really, really good. I don't remember exactly where he placed in the mid lane. Obviously, Maple was number 1, which is insane. Diplex coming in probably just behind him. Akali versus Silas is the question here for Diplex. Look at C9's draft. They took Akali as the answer into Silas, and then looks like Akali was banned, so they took Silas blind, played it into an Aurelia, which of course had the huge early CS lead, and then just, wasn't it. The Silas, played by Bjergsen, Akali, or Diplex on the Akali, really kind of crushing him. And this doesn't give us any information, right? It gives us the information that if Akali's banned, if Akali and Kassadin are banned, he's going to play Silas. If Silas is picked, he's going to play Akali. And again, that's just what he did last time. Doesn't mean it's going to happen again. So what's going to happen? You can pick Silas, you can pick Akali. I think either's fine. I'm going to go Akali. Nope, I'm going to go Silas. I think Akali seems to be just the answer into Silas for the most part. Actually, let me see here. Akali here picked into the Silas. Akali here picked into the Silas. Akali banned. Akali into Silas. Akali blind. Okay, so Harry picked Akali blind. It was answered by the Azir. What else we got? Akali blind. Oh, it's the same game. It's very confusing to me. Yep. So Akali was only picked into Silas with one exception. And so it's got to be Silas there. Maple, the top scoring mid laner of last week. Incredible stuff from Maple. What do we got here? Talia Azir. Talia is an interesting pick for Maples. We look at TSM. Talia here, the last pick, answer into the Silas. I like that because, you don't want to give Silas so many amazing ultimates to be able to steal. And then we look here. Was it banned against him? No, the Galio was banned. That's kind of wild. Galio, Kassadin. And then the answer to the Akali is the Azir. I'd love to think that they're going to play some more Talia. But the Talia is only going to come when they get like a Lucian Nami Elise, right? You get Lucian Nami Elise, like, hello, we're playing bot side over and over and over, and Talia is such a good pick to do that. If they don't get a draft like that, right, even like Ashe Callista Graves, you're still playing against the bot side, but not so much. Alright, so it's going to be Azir for Maple. Hopefully that's not what happens. We get something more fun, but that's what it is for now. Harry, I think we said was the one to blind pick the Akali. Let me make sure I got this. Yeah, blind picked Akali against TSM. Maybe that was just a bet that he was going to play Talia. Akali, I'm not familiar with the matchup enough. Maybe it's kind of a counter pick into the Talia. That being said, maybe Akali's the pick for Harry. Looks like it was banned against him in the first game, which kind of pushed him to the Talia. Yeah, for Harry, we're going to pick Akali. We'll see how that works. Played it the one time last week and was incredible. Or no, we didn't. Oh yeah, sorry, wrong team. Got it all mixed up. Here it is. Yeah, Syndra Akali. I didn't play Syndra. Did you play Syndra? Am I crazy? Syndra, sure enough. I just got totally mixed up. Whoops. Yeah, the Akali blind into the Azir, and then the Syndra as the counter pick into the Azir. I wish we saw more Syndra. Kind of bring me back to the old days. Just isn't it? Jensen. Is Jensen going to bounce back? Where are we here? Dignitas. He played himself. Azir Akali. Again, we saw Akali pretty much only played as the answer into Silas. Where are we here? Brain's getting fried. It's been a long day. We saw the Akali here get into the early rotation Silas. The only early rotation Silas we saw all week. And then as we go, second game, they played the Azir as the answer into the blind Victor. So, Azir seems to be the safe pick. We know that obviously they can play it, that Jensen can play it. Probably going to have to go Azir here. I just don't think that in a week where Dignitas really needs to win, I don't think they're going to put their eggs in the basket of an assassin mid laner for Jensen. Just doesn't really seem to be his forte, just historically. What's next? Palafox, Victor, Cassiopeia. Let's see. Palafox, what was his priority here? He picked the Cassio as the answer into the Rise. It was the only Rise we saw this week. It was the only Cassio we saw this week. And we're not going to see another Cassio unless we see a Rise. Just too short range to deal with a lot of champions, right? The Azir is just going to outrange them. Silas and Akali will probably be able to assassinate her too easily. And we saw Azir as the answer into the Victor. Kind of a weird matchup there. Or no, we saw the Victor blind. Answered by the Azir of Jensen. That's right. So Cassio Victor, kind of a strange 1-2 punch there. So what do we do with that? What do we do with Cassiopeia Victor? I don't think we pick either of those for Palafox. Were things banned against him that forced him to it? Oh, we saw Silas banned in the first one, but you're not going to play Silas into Rise. And what else? We saw an Akali ban, but they were the ones that banned the Akali in a Silas ban. Yeah, I think maybe Silas is the pick. As, Azir... It certainly could be Azir. But it sure feels like if you wanted Azir blind, he would have picked it here. And I don't think he does. And so Silas gets banned against him here. This is a counter pick. He's not going to pick Silas into Rise. But Rise is obviously not getting back through again. We're going with Silas for Palafox. I think that makes a lot of sense. Blaze Olive, he was terrible last week. Still going to go through it here. Silas Azir, Blaze Olive. Kind of been known for control mages, at least as far as I've been paying attention the last 2 or so years. Saw them take the first rotation Silas, which is interesting, and then it was early banned by them, actually, which allowed them to take the Azir. Yeah, that's interesting. I think they learned their lesson on giving a Blaze Olive Silas, to be honest. So I'm going to go with Azir. I think that was an adaptation that they made. Then Golden Guardians, Gory. Obviously, it wasn't Gory in the mid lane. It was, I think, a young boy. Silas Aurelia. So he played the Silas in the first game. As far as I know, it's going to be him again. And so Silas Aurelia. Where are we here? Yeah, so we played the Aurelia as the answer into Silas. What happened in this week? They picked the late rotation Silas, banned Caston and Aurelia. Yeah, seems like it all revolves around the Silas. They either want it or they want to counterpick it. Silas is the play here. So we didn't end up going any Victor. Just one Akali rest between Azir and Silas. I go through these and I get so confident about them. And it just never works that way. It just never does. We go by as we look at 80 carries here. Yeah, it seems like Zeri Sivir is going to be it. I just don't see teams going back to the Varus. Just was not effective in the first week. Maybe teams will be, more willing to play it. To be honest, I don't really see it. I think we'll see a lot of Zeri. I think we'll see a lot of Sivir. What did we see FBI do last week? FBI in here played the Jhin and the Varus. Right? The Varus, a part of that EG game where they got out to a nice lead against CLG. And they got hard outscaled by the Sivir, the Karma, compared to the first pick, Lethality Varus. I don't think they're going to do it again. And then in the first game, they took... Where are we here? Where's EG? They took Jhin as the answer into Varus Karma. We got a Ashe Jhin here. Yeah, what is he going to play? I don't know what he's going to play, to be honest. And I think the 80 carry role is going to be a bit of a crapshoot. To be honest, I'd love to see them get Lucian Nami. I think it was it? Yeah, first rotation red band against them both times. Yeah, I don't think Lucian's getting through to him. And I don't think they'll play Varus again. So then, he's not... It was the only Jhin we saw. We can't pick Jhin for him. Zeri or Sivir? Yeah, when in doubt, Zeri. I think that's going to be the answer for a lot. Berserker, the answer is Zeri, always. We don't even think about it. Prince, it's Zeri. Now, I'm going to double check my work here. As we see C9, they took my first pick Zeri here. And it was first banned against them by 100 Thieves. Zeri, Sivir, Lucian. I think we might see a lot of that, to be honest. That pushed him to the Ashe. Golden Guardians banned the Ashe. He said, okay, fine, I play Zeri. Whatever, I don't care. That's funny. Yeah, so, what the heck? It's not going to be Varus. Definitely Zeri for C9. FlyQuest, they first picked the Zeri. They even allowed the Lucian through to pick the Zeri. Interesting. Did they do that again? They were at the angle to first pick it. So FlyQuest not banning the Lucian like a lot of other teams are. Maybe they're trying to prioritize it? Not sure. They ended up with the Ezreal, and of course, he popped off on that too. I just really think they're going to play so heavily around him that you can't go wrong with Zeri. I really wanted Double Lift to play the Lucian. It's kind of what I remember him for back in the day. They had that pocket pick video about, Lucian is my pocket pick because that's going way back, probably before most of you guys were even watching. Show my age a little bit. Varus, Zeri were the two picks again. Already on the record of thinking teams are not really going to prioritize the Varus so hard. Ashe is the first pick by C9. Wow. Yeah, I guess that was after the 3 bans. It looks like they were trying to force him into playing the Varus, and then they just end up taking it themselves. In the second game, they first picked the Zeri. Yeah, Double Lift is definitely prioritizing the Zeri, and would you look at this? We've got 4 Zeris out of the first 4. That is freaking annoying. TSM and Neo, again, surprise team. Neo, Lucian, Kalista. I believe that was the only Kalista we saw this week. Let me double check that work. ADC, yeah, 1 Kalista. And then what was the first? The Lucian. Yeah, so Lucian got through. Again, I don't think that will again. How did that happen here? Oh, they got through to red side even. That was the Sejuani priority. Looks like they were willing to trade. Let's see, Rise, Varus, Jax. TSM banning the Jax both games. Let me check my work here. Yeah, we had him on the Ornn. Jax, again, such a hard counter to some of those big tanks. Yeah, what are we going to do here? TSM, Jax, ban both times. Willing to ban the Jax and let the Lucian through. Immortals not prioritizing it. That's interesting. I don't know what to do with it. And then TSM didn't ban it again. And of course, TL is going to first pick it. I think we might get a Lucian for Neo. It looks like with the draft, they're trying to work for it. They're willing to give up another power pick. We'll see if in either of the teams they play. Again, they play 100 Thieves, and they play, who is it? Evil Geniuses, I believe. And so, are those teams going to let Lucian through? Maybe they let the Lucian through and play the Zeri. I don't know, but I'm going to go on a limb and say TSM gets the Lucian. I don't think it's going to happen a lot, but I think it'll happen for them. TL gets Lucian both times. It did not work out for them. We'll see if they change it up. They went Lucian, Nami both games. Again, I just hate core JJ on the Nami. He's too good. He's got too much potential player on the map to get that. That's not happening again. There's no way, right? What were they willing to give up? They gave up the Zeri Maokai to FlyQuest. They gave up Ashe Callisto. That's not giving up anything. They still get the Lucian. How do they lose with this draft against TSM? Lucian, Nami, Sejuani, those are the 3 power picks. Against Callista Graves? Golly, I gotta go watch that game again. How do you lose with that draft? Oh, man. Anyways. You know what? You can't. They obviously prioritize it so hard. You're going to change some things, but I just think that if you're going to prioritize it that hard, you're probably going to get it one of the games. Loser eye picture on the hyper carries. What do we have? We had Ezreal Sivir. So again, we saw a couple Sivers. How did those come through? Look at CLG here. They took an early Ashe, and then Ezreal answer into the Varus Heimer. I think that's a decent answer into that. And then we saw a late Sivir here as the answer into the Varus. I could see him playing Sivir. I really think we're going to kind of devolve back into the Sivir Zeri trades with the occasional Lucian. Spawn coming off the worst week I've ever seen in AD carry. Play 2 Varus games. That's not going to happen again. If you missed the last episode, 0.1 points between 2 games. He went 0-5-0. There's no chance they give him the same champion that he just went 0-5-0 in 2 games on. What are we going to do here? How early were they picking it? They picked it first rotation both times. First time with the Heimer, second time with the Sejuani. It just didn't work either time. CLG playing the Ezreal Ashe into it. FlyQuest playing the Ezreal Karma. Interesting. Both games against Dignitas ends up with the Ezreal. That's interesting. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe if you're digging the extra level, you see who Dignitas is playing against, you pick an Ezreal for that player. I'm going to check it just for poops and giggles, if you will. LCS schedule. What do we got? Dig against 100 Thieves. You can see a double lift Ezreal. You got Dig against EG. You can see an FBI Ezreal. Yeah, neither of those teams are playing Ezreal. That's safe. But the only two Ezreals we saw, of course, Ezreal. Look at these stats. 14-0-3 with the Ezreal. 18-12-19 with the Zeri. Wow. That is insane. So what is he going to play? Is he going to play Zeri? Is he going to play Sivir? There's just no way they play Varus again. Dig banning the Lucian both times. Getting a Zeri banned against them one time. Yuumi the other. Gnar both games. Early Kassadin both games. So we must be seeing Jensen playing some Kassadin. So what do we do? I'm going to go back to the Zeri. I just think that's probably the most likely one. I just don't see them putting anyone on the Varus once again. Yeah, I don't think it's wrong to pick the Varus, but after how poorly last week went, I just got to think the team's going to make some changes. Looking at tactical, here's fine, kind of bad. Where are we here? Goodness gracious. Losing my mind. Been up for like 20 hours. Not sure it's actually that much, but it kind of feels like it. There we go. Draven and Sivir. The Draven counterpick into the Lucian Nami, which didn't work at all. Although I saw it work spectacularly for G2 and the LEC. That was kind of awesome, to be honest. I wish we could see just more aggression like that from our beloved teams in North America, but we're just not, We're just not. What came about to give them the Draven and the Sivir? First game, they give up the early rotation Lucian Nami, answer back with the Draven Pike. Last rotation, they learn from their lesson. They're not giving up the Lucian. They give up the Zeri. They take the Sivir. So, looks like they're going to lean back. I mean, look at this. They went Ornn, Azir, Sivir, Lulu, Wukong. Like, they just went full scaling. Then again, you don't scale quite as hard as a Zeri, Yuumi, Sejuani, Victor. And then a Renekton allows them to play a little bit early game. Yeah, it could be Sivir, it could be Zeri. I'm going to go Zeri. Nope, I'm going to go Sivir. Changed my mind last second. I don't think either is wrong. Sticks a Varus, Sivir. Again, we kind of devolved. It seems like week 2 was a lot more willing than week 1 just to handshake the early rotations. Sivir, Zeri, trade. Where are we here with Golden Guardians? First pick Yuumi to go with the Sivir. We saw the Yuumi banned against him the other game. Didn't see a lot of Yuumis this week. And then in the second game, the early Sejuani answered by the Varus. And I already think Varus is going to die. So, yeah, they seem to be happy with the Sivir. They prioritize the Yuumi over the Sivir. Because whichever one gets the Yuumi is the best. Sivir is the play here for Stixay. Getting towards the end, I'm not going to analyze the supports quite as much. Mostly just going to go through with the corresponding support to the AD carry that we already picked for him, right? So Zeri, for the most part, is going to be matched with Lulu, with the exception of Golden Guardians. Prioritize the Yuumi. They first picked it. Let's see, where else did Yuumi show up here? Control F, Yuumi. Banned by FlyQuest. 100 Thieves picked the Yuumi, but the Lulu was already gone. Immortals prioritizing that. I think most teams are actually going to prioritize the Lulu, even if it's just so that their fans still like them. So Vulcan, Zeri, that's a Lulu. Core JJ, Zeri, that's a Lulu. Lucio, Lulu. Zen, Lulu. Boring, Lulu. Oh wait, who am I kidding? Nami for Core JJ. Even worse. At least with Lulu, you can flash polymorph someone. Goodness gracious. TSM, Lucian, Nami, CLG, Sivir, Lulu, Zeri, Lulu, Sivir, Lulu. I just think these hard pushing lanes are going to phase out of the meta. I could be dead wrong on that. Maybe they double down. We get Varus Heimerdinger, Varus Karma every game, even Varus Ashe. That might happen, but I just really think that teams are going to just revert back to the Zeri Sivir trade, the Lulu Yumi trade, and then just the occasional Lucian Nami. So here it is in all its glory. This is the final picks and bans for week 2. Hopefully we'll hit that 40% mark. That is the goal every time. Oh, excuse me. I am excited to see it. My goodness, something's going on here. But thanks for joining me as we get through these picks and bans. Live Evil Pod, don't steal these. Guy whose name I'm forgetting for my 100 Talk Fantasy League, don't steal these. Or should you? I think that's an interesting point strategy-wise, right? Like if, obviously I'm trying to get the correct picks, but if you think your pick's better than mine, probably just pick it, right? Because I guess it depends on if you think you're ahead or behind in your matchup. If you're favored hard in your matchup, maybe you don't want the picks and bans to be a factor. So you'll just copy them and try to make sure nobody gets bonus points or nobody gets banned. If you're an underdog, maybe you don't copy them. Maybe you go for your own, try to go for broke. I don't know. That's just an interesting strategic thing that I just thought about right now. This, of course, will be posted on the Discord channel. You can find that link in the description of the video if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, also in the description. Find us on Twitter. It's at LFL Pod. Always talking about stuff. Always tweeting out our thoughts. That's how you'll know that we're going live. We'll go live 3 days a week. We are currently rolling on that schedule. Sunday nights will be the main episode recording. Tuesday nights, like we're doing right now, picks and bans. We'll try to keep it under an hour. Went a little bit over today. And then Friday nights, we'll be doing the live fantasy reaction. Following the week, we can bask together in our wins, cry together about our losses, and just, recap what was a fun week. Hoping to one day get to do the co-stream. Obviously going to need a few more viewers before that happens. Hoping to get there. That is going to be a goal for, summer or maybe even the following spring. That way we can root for our teams as we go. Expecting to have a guest on the pod for next week. It'll be, a relatively well-known sports betting guy, loves betting on League of Legends, loves doing prize picks. We've talked about all this type of stuff before in the past, not so much lately. We'll get a little bit into that this Sunday following week 2 of LCS action. So excited for that. Honestly, just excited for everything. Like, I am just hyped up about Fantasy LCS. You know that if you've been watching. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. I hope these picks and bans will help you win your weeks. If they do, throw it in the Discord. Shout out to the guy who did it today. Let me shout you out by name because of how much I appreciated it and how much it made me feel warm and fuzzy inside. 7KB pointing out the Spica double Maokai pick. We look at that back in week 1. Boom. Maokai only picked twice this week, both times by Spica. We nailed that one. So feeling good about that. Feeling bad about missing Fudge. But it is what it is. Again, join the Discord. Follow us on Twitter. This has been Pistons Wish. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you on Friday night with live reaction to week 2. And then Sunday night as we record the main podcast episode. This is Pistons Wish. Signing off. Peace out.